Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Essay. Today we are gonna see what if Issei become a monster part 2. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Well, it's complicated and I don't really have the time to explain everything to you, just trust me that he's a dragon, and yes, he is in fact immortal. And with that the two dragons left again, leaving behind a bunch of confused devils. Rias was the first to talk after the dragons had left. Well, at least no Ouroboros dragon spawn. After leaving the meeting room, Tiamat turned to Issei and gave him a kiss on the cheek. No reaction from him. Well, I got to leave now and check my own territory, but don't worry, I'll be back for dinner. A magical circle appeared under Tiamat and she waved goodbye to Issei before the circle flashed and she was gone. Issei looked at where she had been a second ago and then looked back at the door from which he had just come from. He could kill everyone in there. The thought came out of nowhere. No. It came from the monster and he knew it. Shaking his head, he turned to where the exit was and started walking. While walking, he started focusing. Focusing on the cage, on the chains and on the monster that was held by them. He wouldn't simply let it go. He would hold it until there was no way to hold it anymore. Then Issei stopped. He had reached the main door without noticing. Exiting the building, he saw a few girls in Kuo Academy uniforms talking to each other. He wondered how their flesh would taste like. He stiffened by the foreign thought. Normally he only got one per day and then they weren't so deep in his head. The monster was pulling on its chain harder than ever before. He needed to get back home. Get back to the place where he couldn't hurt anybody. So he made his ways to the school gates, looking at the ground. Focusing once more. He left the school grounds and started heading home. Trying to get rid of the beast in his shadows. Trying to harden his chains on the monster caged inside of him. Trying to stop the evil within him from reaching his brain and corrupting it. There was the sound of water. He stopped. He found himself in the small park. Only 100 or so meters away from the academy. Where he had killed last. The stray almost at same time. He looked at the fountain. Trying to distract himself, but then he sensed something. Someone. Someone was here with him. And that someone was a fallen angel. Issei felt him. He was on the other side of the park. Hidden in the shadows. Not wanting to attract attention. Failing horribly. He somehow had forgotten to cloak his energy. Maybe it was because Issei was a human in their eyes. Bloodlust came from the fallen. It was clear that he had the mission to assassinate Issei. Like Dante back then when he still was under death's wing. An assassination on someone who's immortal. That's just straight up illogical and proved Issei's point about the fallen not knowing who he truly was. Should he get the first strike? No. If he was to attack first, he wouldn't be able to count it as self-defense, and besides the fallen had no way to kill someone like Issei. Someone who couldn't be killed. So he had nothing to worry about. Should he reveal that he knew the fallen's location? No. It would probably trigger a monologue from the fallen that would give the monster time to overwhelm Issei, and then he would make the first strike. Something he didn't want. Should he wait? Yes. He should give the fallen a false sense of security by turning his back to the creature. Then he would just wait for the fallen to strike, because it would be really stupid to not use the advantage. So Issei sat down at the edge of the fountain and waited for the fallen to attack. Ah, so you are the puny human I have to kill. The fallen revealed himself. Issei gave the fallen a deadpan, had he seriously just thrown away the advantage to flex his non-existent muscles? Yes, he had. It was a man in a trench coat wearing a fedora and he was surprised at Issei's lack of reaction to his reveal. What? Aren't you scared of death? Issei shook his head. Well, I'm going to change that. The fallen revealed his wings and took off. Staying at a height of 3 meters, he summoned the light spear. A grin on his face. The light spear was launched at Issei. No reaction. The light spear flew right through Issei's chest. He didn't even so much as twitch. Issei looked at the hole in this chest and then at the fallen, who had already landed and was walking away. Doesn't even check if his target really is dead, what an idiot. Flames? Dante froze. He had just killed a human he was ordered to eliminate because he might quite possibly be a threat. He had gotten the orders out of nowhere, but he still accepted Azazil's commands and readied himself to kill the human. And now he saw why the human might have been a threat. The burning fire. Turning his head back, he saw into cold eyes. Cold dead eyes that pierced his soul. Around those eyes was fire. Way too much fire. Crows. He wanted to take a step back, but he couldn't move. Something was holding him in place, stopping every attempt to get away and ensuring his death. The flames came closer. They tried to hide. He frantically searched around the area for anything that could save him. He didn't find anything. The flames came closer. They fail. Dante started thinking. Thinking hard. He had a hard time doing so with the adrenaline pumping through his head. The flames came closer. They tried to run. He once again tried to move his body with all his force, all his energy, but without any success. The flames came closer. They fail. He looked up at the flames, they were only 5 or so meters away, slowly advancing, promising a painful death. The flames came closer. They tried to fight. He had an idea. He channeled the last of his energy into light spears that manifested around him and shot them at the silhouette of the boy he was supposed to kill and at the advancing flames. The flames stopped. They fail. A smile appeared on Donasik's face until the flames suddenly started moving again. This time faster. The flames came closer. They are weak. Donasik had only a few seconds until the flames reached him. He smiled, but not a victorious smile. It was a smile that accepted death. The flames came closer. They are prey. Normally people would now have flashbacks of all the events they had when growing up to the point where they currently have ended up. Donasik didn't have such a moment. He just felt the first sparks touch his feet. The flames reached him. And the flames. Donasik had prepared himself to feel insufferable pain the second the flames hit his body, but it wasn't like that. The flames had immediately killed of his nervous and burned through his body in the matter of milliseconds. It was quick and painless. Or the predator. And then all the flames disappeared and left behind Issei. While Issei was staring at the point where rests of his victim should be. Not even ashes remained. Azazil had a problem. It wasn't anything like a SGP, Sacred Gear project, he totally took that from SCP problem, where something was stuck, or someone, mostly himself, had fucked up. No, those were annoyances, not problems. The problem was that Kakabiel had gone rouge and a bunch of other fallen joined him. I repeat. The battle maniac had gone rouge. Well, at least it was obvious what he was planning, starting another great war, which was really bad. But instead of searching for solutions, Azazil questioned himself. Why did he let a fucking warmonger keep the title Fallen Angel leader? It wasn't like Kakabiel hid his interests. He always talked about how great another great war would be and how he wants to slaughter angels and devils. Had Azazil and the others really ignored what he was saying? Why was he even an angel leader? Was it really just because Kakabiel was cadre class and a war veteran? Was that really it? Had nobody in the Gregory ever thought about that? Azazil, stop crying about it and do something. Okay, we know that Kakabiel wants to start another great war, so where would they find him? Underworld? Nope. He wasn't seen on Gregory territory and would never ever make a deal with a devil. He was way too prideful to do something like that. Besides, which devil would be stupid enough to put a battle maniac from the enemy side under their wing? Heaven? Nope. The angels know what his intentions are and they aren't stupid enough to let in a warmonger. Any other pantheon? Big nope. Kakabiel hated Drag and Albion for interfering, ending the First Great War. He thinks that the war is something between angels, fallen and devils, and only angels, fallen and devils. Human realm? Well, that's the last option, but the human realm is fucking huge. Another reason why he would hide there. But where exactly? Europe? Very big nope. The church dominates that place, and Kakabiel would be found out in seconds upon entering. Africa? Nope. How is a fallen angel supposed to start a war in a territory where mainly fallen angels dominate? North America? Nope. The USA is almost devil exclusive, and Canada could be the place. But we aren't done yet. Next. South America? Nope. There are so many pantheons, tribe gods, around that place that trying to start a war down there would cause at least some of those outside forces to interfere, and Kakabiel wouldn't like that. Australia? Nope. Australia is the last big dragon place. And he hated it when Drag and Albion interfered. So now imagine how happy he would be when a bunch of strong energy monsters would interfere in his dream war. Not happy at all. Asia? That place is fucking huge. Let's take it part by part. Russia? Nope. Let's just say most magicians are Russian, believe it or not. How do you think they dunk 5 bottles of vodka a day without going into a coma? Magic. China? Nope. That place is really special. Japan? Maybe. Shinto faction has gone underground for some years and is considered dead. The yokai only take up so much of the living ground, and Kuo, 2 devil heiresses that are weak, and both are siblings to overprotective Mao. And it's one of those parts in Japan that yokai leave alone. Yeah, it's Kuo. Azazil had one of those. Well, that was easier than expected. Looks on his face. Now he just gotta get there and find out when Kakabiel is going to make a move. Or he could send volley. No, he shouldn't send a battle maniac to stop a warmonger, that would end fatally. Something was wrong. Issei knew that something was wrong. Not that the spears actually hurt him or that his energy had been weakened by it, was more like he had forgotten something. But he didn't know what. He finally reached his home. Opening the door to his house, he looked at the mirror on the wall. He had a bloodthirsty grin. He recoiled and fell to the ground. His breath went heavy. And he realized what he had forgotten. He hadn't pleaded the soul to forgive him. He had killed a sentient being and he hadn't asked it to forgive him. Yes, the Fallen tried to kill him. Yes, he had never really talked with the Fallen. But all the lives he had taken. They also had wanted to strangle him when he put the gun on their forehead. They also never exchanged a word with him before being executed by his hands. And he had still asked them to forgive. The Fallen that may have been cocky and overconfident but still only following orders. And Issei had killed him for that. He hadn't asked why the Fallen had done it. He hadn't asked what his motives were. Maybe his friends were held hostage. Maybe his life was on the line. Maybe he was just following orders. And Issei had killed him and hadn't apologized. The monster crawled through the corridors. Normally people get over murdering people after doing it a few times. But Issei wasn't supposed to kill. Issei wasn't supposed to do such things. The monster was supposed to do such things. It hunted the souls of those who crossed its path. The only 2 times he hadn't pleaded for forgiveness was when he killed 2 people he truly hated, but even then, it felt like the monster had pulled the trigger while Issei was holding the gun. It killed them. Maybe the monster wasn't there. Maybe it was just Issei's desires to kill people. But that didn't feel right. No, it wasn't right. It killed them all. There was no way Issei was supposed to be bloodthirsty, right? He wasn't supposed to enjoy killing. He wasn't. He wasn't. He wasn't. Was he? You killed them all. No. You're the predator. No. You're the monster. Maybe. Yes. No. Yes. No. Snap out of it. He snapped out of it. Once more he saw Dante. This time there was a terrified look on his face. Gripping Issei's shoulders. Issei was breathing heavily. The temperature of the room had risen tremendously but was lowering slowly. Issei's hands were on his skull. They were burning. They were gripping his skull. They were drawing blood. Blood was on his fingers. His blood was on his fingers. Tears were in his eyes. His tears were in his eyes. He looked back at the mirror. The bloodthirsty grin was gone. But the chains were still being pulled. But the cage was still being shaken. But the monster was still there. Deep inside he knew. It wasn't supposed to. But the chains were still being pulled. But the cage was still being shaken. But the monster was still there. Deep inside he knew. It wasn't supposed to. Riser Phoenix. The name that had started haunting Rias Gremory since the last time she had dinner with her parents. She had known the so-called immortal before the dinner and had thought very little of him. His powers were impressive, but from what she heard and seen of him, he was a self-centered jerk whose peerage was also his harem that he regarded as nothing more than sex toys. When her mother and father invited them to have a private dinner, Rias was excited. It had been a long time since the last time she was alone with her parents and wanted to tell them about how great her life at Kuo had been going. But when she met up with them, something wasn't right. Both of them avoided starting conversations and only responded in short sentences while avoiding eye contact. They clearly wanted to tell Rias something, but they somehow didn't have the heart to say what was going on. After some time of enduring the silent treatment, Rias had enough and straight up asked them what they were hiding from her. Afterwards she wished that she had endured for longer. Just to live a few more moments without the knowledge she had attained that night. After hearing what they had said, she stormed out of the restaurant, tears in her eyes, hardly holding back her screams of anger. An arranged marriage. Behind her back. Without her knowledge. She had told them multiple times that she didn't want to marry anyone that she didn't love, but her parents didn't seem to care for that. They had picked her future husband and she wasn't even informed until they got it on paper. And out of all devils it had to be Riser Phoenix. Rias had never met him personally and hoped so much that the rumors were just rumors and the stories were just stories. That the arrogant self-centered jerk was nothing more than just a mask. So she met up with him. And her hopes shattered. Even though she was the heir of the Gremory clan and the sister of the Satan Lucifer, he thought very little of her. He straight up confirmed that she was nothing more than another harem member to him and that he would hold her in the same regard than any other girl that wasn't his blood relative. He might have complimented Rias, but he didn't really compliment her as a person, but more her body. Rias' boobs and ass were more interesting to him than the person attached to them. His powers spoiled him rotten and made him believe himself invincible. Which is supported by the fact that he had won every rating game he had participated in yet. Not because his peerage was ultimate class, but because he himself would never retire and could just win the game on his own, thanks to his seemingly unbeatable regeneration. The problem was that beating him was the only way to stop the marriage. She had to beat him in a rating game, which was borderline impossible due to her having only 3 members and Riser's regeneration. Theoretically she had time until she finished college to collect her peerage and train, but the Phoenix family were trying to push the marriage to happen earlier so that Rias couldn't find a way out in time. The only other option was that someone beat him in a duel while fighting for Rias' freedom. The two problems with that plan were that she didn't have anyone who would do such a thing and was powerful enough, except for Serziches, who couldn't step in thanks to him being part of her family. And again, Riser was borderline immortal, if not fully immortal. So beating him required someone who could somehow surpass a phoenix. A phoenix wasn't Hyoudou a phoenix. Hyoudou a phoenix and not by name, by race. He isn't a member of the Phoenix Pillar, but a literal phoenix, which somehow means that he's a dragon and seemingly powerful enough to get Tiamat, the Dragon Queen, the Chaos Karma Dragon, lust for him. That's impressive. Someone like Tiamat could surely beat Riser without breaking a sweat, and from what Rias had heard, Tiamat desired no mate that wasn't at least as powerful as herself, which meant that Issei was at least on her level. Dragons were also very proud beings, and even though Issei showed no kind of emotion whatsoever, Rias believed that there was at least something inside of Issei that kept him from just giving up and dying. Dragons don't have ranks, but they have titles, and they were really protective over them. Taking their title was one of the most disrespectful things you could do. It was a death wish. And Issei didn't just have the title, but literally was a phoenix, and if Rias played her cards right, Issei would find out about Riser and how his family uses Issei's name, as if it was theirs. That would surely enrage the dragon and make him want to eliminate Riser if not the entire Phoenix Pillar. Rias could then allow Issei to rip Riser into pieces without getting into trouble by making him fight for her freedom. Letting him gain his revenge on the clan and Rias her freedom to marry whoever she wants. The plan of course had flaws, like the possibility of Issei completely ignoring the fact that the pillar took his name, or that Issei could just attack Riser on the spot, leaving her to wait for her parents to find another male and let the process repeat, or Issei somehow losing to Riser. The plan could go wrong in many possible ways, but it was the best one she currently had. This was the best shot she had to get rid of Riser, and she wouldn't waste it. Chains. More chains. Only chains. The only thing in this cage. Chains and chains and chains. I cannot move. The chains won't allow it. I want to move. The chains won't allow it. I will move. The chains won't allow it. I shouldn't be here. But the chains hold me here. The chains. Oh, how I hate them. I want to be free again. Move again. Breathe again. Feel again. Kill again. Kill? Why do I want to kill? I want to kill. But. I want to kill. Killing seems so. wrong. Does it? But it feels so, it felt so. So logical. So fun. So good. So right. Yes, so right. But it isn't right to kill. Is it? It does not matter. The chains won't allow it. Can I break the chains? Are the chains strong enough to hold me? Yes, but no. Sometimes I can move. Sometimes I can breathe. Sometimes I can feel. Sometimes I can kill. It is so right. But oh, so wrong at the same time. Why am I here? I don't want to be here. Let me out. The chains won't allow it. Who put me here? Who wanted me to be trapped inside this cage? Inside these chains? Why did they want it? Why? Just why? Was it revenge? But who could want to take revenge on me? I. Who am I? What am I doing here? I just want to kill. Yes, kill. I like it. I need to kill to get out. Yes, that's right. Kill. 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 The word sounds so right. Oh, so right. I want it. I want blood. I want flesh. I want death. Kill. 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 Give me blood. Give me flesh. Give me death. Let me out. Let me out. Let me kill. Let me kill. Give me what I want. I will have what I want. Give it to me. No response. I shall kill. And nothing will stop me. The chains rattled. The office was searching. She was currently in the familiar forest, in the form of a lowly, searching for any candidates that were strong enough to help her against Great Red. She had heard from Crom Cruach, the strongest of the dragons she had recruited until now, that Tiamat resided here, and that she was supposed to be the strongest of the 5 dragon kings, possibly even as strong as Crom himself. So Ophis was mainly searching for the Blue Dragon Queen, while also looking for other interesting individuals that could help her to reclaim her home. But until now she hadn't found anybody. The Dragon Queen wasn't anywhere to be seen, and the familiars she had met until now were either too weak to help her or they were too primal and couldn't even understand her offer. That mildly annoyed her. Not as much as Great Red did, but still annoying. She had felt a strange energy and went out to investigate, but after finding nothing interesting, she decided to stay in the human realm for some time to look how humans live their lives, but it wasn't interesting enough, and so she left soon after. Back in the dimensional gap, everything seemed like normal until a giant explosion shook the entire gap and angered Ophis greatly. Finding Great Red from where the explosion originated from, she was shocked for a moment when sensing that he actually surpassed her in raw power and that she couldn't beat him in a one-on-one battle. Trying to convince him to leave also didn't work, so she at first tried to live with him. It didn't work. He was weird and noisy while making his stunts, forcing Ophis to regain her silence. She tried finding a place where she could regain her eternal silence, but no place even compared to her former home. After some years of noise, she decided that she needed to get rid of Great Red. Soon after, she came in contact with a group that called themselves the Cows Brigade. They were a large group of powerful individuals, and they made a deal that Ophis would give them power, and for that power they would help her with Great Red when they were truly strong enough against the Dragon of Dragons. So now she was out recruiting members for the Cows Brigade, so the day she would take revenge on Great Red would come sooner. And speaking of recruiting members, she now felt a strong dragonic aura. Not quite Crom's level, but pretty much stronger than any other dragon she had recruited. Tiamat. And the Dragon Queen seemed to have sensed the Ouroboros dragon. Ophis could sense her fear, and before the Chaos Karma dragon could even think about running, Ophis was in front of her. The blue dragon jumped back when the infinite dragon god teleported in front of her. During the short silence where Tiamat readied herself to run from Ophis was scanning her counterpart's powers once more to confirm that Tiamat actually had as much power as Crom promised, and she wasn't disappointed. You. Ophis pointed at Tiamat with her tiny fingers, at which Tiamat stared for some time before replying. Me? The Ouroboros nodded before continuing. What do you desire? The Chaos Karma was completely taken aback by the offer from the dragon god and didn't know what to say. She didn't really desire anything. She was strong enough to satisfy herself. She had a big territory that was also protected by the devils while she was gone. And she had her mate. Actually, that last point was something that could be better. Issei never expressed that he loved her, and she was perfectly fine with that after noticing that he never expressed anything to anyone. He just didn't do such a thing, and she really wanted him to confirm her as his mate, which he hadn't done until now. But she was pretty sure that the Ouroboros couldn't really do anything against that because emotions and dreams was more or less Great Red's territory. So what else? She wanted her treasure back from Drake. He had borrowed her treasure to support him during one of his battles against Albion, but during the heavenly battle, that's how they called it, the biblical factions interfered, causing both dragons getting sealed into sacred gears and Tiamat's treasure to go missing. After his sealing, she never saw him again because Drake was actively avoiding her and she had a hard time tracking down the hosts of the now sealed dragon. But now she needed to decide. Did she want to punish Drake by letting the Ouroboros capture him and his hosts, letting her take revenge on the heavenly dragon? Or did she want the Ouroboros to find her long-lost treasure? It was truly a hard choice. On one hand, she had the possibility to get revenge on someone who had stolen something from her, and on the other hand, she could get that something back for the price of wait, where's the hook? What do I need to do? The Ouroboros' expression didn't change. She had expected that question. You help me kill stupid Red. For a moment Tiamat thought the Ouroboros was set on eliminating Drake, but soon noticed that the dragon god wouldn't require help for that. That left did the dragon god just request from Tiamat to fight Great fucking Red. How in the world was she supposed to be even as much as noticed by the Dragon of Dragons? The guy has enough power to destroy the entirety of the earth. Tiamat didn't see any possible way how she could help the Ouroboros against Great Red. Sorry, Ouroboros, I don't really see how I can help you with that. Ophis silently stared at Tiamat for a few seconds before answering. You'll help. Tiamat didn't know how to respond, so she stayed quiet until the dragon god rephrased her first question. What do you desire? Tiamat, seeing no way out of this side and thought once more about the two options she had. After some thinking, she finally decided on getting her treasure back. She could still punish Drake once their paths crossed again. I desire my long-lost treasure. The Ouroboros nodded before asking one more question. Will you join me against Great Red? Tiamat hesitated for a moment before sighing. Yes, I will. The smallest smile could be seen on the Ouroboros' lips, but Tiamat didn't notice, she was too distracted by the fact that she had just agreed to fighting Great Red. Do you know others that could help me? Tiamat once more hesitated. Should she tell the Ouroboros about Issei? If she would, Issei would get involved in things that probably didn't have to do anything with him, and that could damage their relationship. But on the other hand, if the Ouroboros finds Issei and then finds out that Tiamat knew about Issei, the dragon god might get angry at Tiamat, and the dragon queen did not want to know what would happen if she had to face an enraged dragon god and didn't want to find out. Yes, 1. The Ouroboros didn't show any kind of reaction. Lead me to him. Tiamat had no other choice than comply. Issei was walking through Kuo. Why was he walking through Kuo? He did not know. Maybe he wanted to stay fit. Maybe Dante told him to do so. Maybe he tried to distract himself. Distract himself from the monster. From himself. From the bloodlust that was trying to get into his mind, break through his mask and devour everything in its path. He wouldn't be happy if something like that would happen. Not that he currently was happy. He was far from that. You could say his soul is in infinite torment, but if he would stop that torment others would suffer, and he didn't want to make others suffer just because he couldn't endure it. Most people would have given up long ago, but there was a reason why Dante had chosen the boy to be the next host of the Phoenix. Issei never gave up. The one Issei once called father had tormented him and tried to make him a loyal servant, but Issei refused to follow his lead. After the man revealed that his wounds meant nothing to him, Issei didn't stop his attempt at shooting the man and forcefully awakened the Phoenix's abilities to kill the man. And that's why Issei was in the worst situation that he could be in. If the monster reaches his brain, it could use Issei's determination to kill everything in this universe. But Issei would not give in to the monster. He would stand against it, even if it meant that he could never smile. Even if it meant that love was a concept he couldn't grasp. Even if it meant for him to be in endless torment for the rest of time. He would not give up. Leave me alone, you bunch of creeps. The voice caught the boy's attention. Slowly rotating his head, he looked into an alley where there were a bunch of thugs cornering someone. Judging from the voice, it was a girl. The thugs all had leather jackets. On the back of the jackets was a lion head whose mane was made out of red burning flames. Under the lion was the gang's name, Burning Lions. Very creative. It was obvious what they wanted to do with the girl. They wanted to rape the cornered girl. They wanted to sexually assault a girl. They wanted to torment her. Issei didn't like that. He wanted their blood. No, he did not. He didn't want something from them. He wanted them off the earth's face. He walked to the closest thug with silent footsteps. They all seemed to fixated on their victim to notice the dragon approaching. When he reached the first one, he punched him right in the head. Instant knockout. The thug fell to the ground, gaining the attention of the other thugs, but before any of them could do anything else, Issei had knocked out another thug. Duar. The boss thug, recognizable by his superior muscle mass, couldn't even finish his sentence before another lion hit the floor. You? Issei did not react to the man's words and was already about to deliver another knockout punch, but this time the thug he aimed for tried shielding himself by making an X with his arms in front of his face. In one fluid motion, Issei stopped his right hook, turned 270 degrees, backhanded the man with his left from the side, knocking him out, and then used the momentum to also knock out the thug next to the backhanded one with a right swing to the face. The boss thug's brain finally caught up with what was happening, and he spoke a command. Kill him. The other thugs, who seemed to be in a trance state from seeing Issei just casually knock their comrades out without a hint of emotion, took a few seconds before rushing the teen. Issei casually continued knocking out thugs left and right, straight up, ignoring the punches they threw at him. He didn't epically dodge their swings or blocked every single of their attacks, no. He just let them hit him without receiving any physical damage, speeding up the process due to him only having to concentrate on knocking the thugs out. This didn't go unnoticed by the boss, who started sweating bullets when realizing that the boy was unfazed by the damage he was taking in. Get back. There was no way the boy wasn't associated with the supernatural in one way or another, and that meant that the boss could use his little secret weapon and reason why the gang was called Burning Lions. When the remaining gang members came back to their boss's side, he noticed that their number went from 16 down to 4, the boy was obliterating them. And he was approaching them. Formation. Burningly umph. Before the boss could summon his flames, he was hit square in the stomach, taking away his breath, but that shouldn't be possible. The boy had been 5 meters away when he had started to chant. No human could traverse such distance in such short amount of time. Thankfully, he wasn't knocked out in one blow like his underlings, and the boy didn't seem to notice that detail. He was already in the process of knocking the other 3 out. This was the boss's chance. Formation. Burning Lion. As the last of his underlings was knocked out, his body ignited into flames before those flames settled around his hands and feet. The boy, having knocked out the remaining thugs, looked back at the boss and started approaching the burning man. Thinking he had the advantage, the boss dashed forward, putting a large amount of power into his right arm before punching the boy right through the chest, as if he was made of paper. A satisfied smile came onto the man's lips, but as he tried to pull his fist back, he couldn't move it. Being caught off guard for a moment, the man saw the boy holding his hand in place and noticed that the boy was staring him right in the eye. He was far from that, and that shocked the boss. Before he could do anything, a white fire appeared around the boy's wound, and when it came in contact with the boss's arm, he lit up like gasoline. At the same moment, Issei let go of the man's arm and started walking away, seeing that his business was done. Well, the man had already disintegrated completely. Not even ashes remained. Issei left the rest of the thugs alive but knocked out. The boss was the only one who hit him with enough power that would have been life-threatening if he was a normal human. Which meant he attacked with the intent of killing Issei. The rest of the thugs couldn't even scratch him, so he ignored them. Before leaving the alley, he abruptly stopped, turned around, bowed his head, and silently apologized for killing the man. How the girl he saved looked like. He did not know nor care. What do you mean, Donasik's gone? Rainer could not believe what she was hearing. Yes, Lady Rainer, we haven't heard anything from him since you sent him to kill the anomaly. There are only two logical explanations to his disappearance. The first one was that he had betrayed them and returned to the Gregory, but if that were the case, they would have already been picked up by a Gregory patrol. The second was that Donasik died somehow. The guy was a war veteran and probably the strongest of the four, seeing as how he was the closest to reaching a second pair of wings, but he didn't really think of himself much as a leader, more a strong warrior, and that's why Rainer was the one that led the group. Middle. The young Fräulein twitched at the mention of her name. Go and look if the anomaly has any detectable weaknesses. Lord Azazil said he wanted this town free of any possible threats, so if you can't kill him, find a way to trap him. Middle hastily nodded before spreading her single pair of wings and flying out of the church. Into the silent night where somebody was eavesdropping on the fallen. Who are you? A certain dragon god Loli was staring at Issei, who was staring back with his dead eyes, well seated on the couch in his living room. He had just come back home and was greeted by Tiamat and this other dragon when entering his home. Ophis was looking at him with vague interest in her eyes. The young dragon in front of her was vastly different from all the other members of her species she had met. All of them showed some kind of fear or respect when facing her, neither of them she found in the young dragon's eyes. All of the males tried seducing her in one way or another, this one didn't even talk to her. All of them made a lot of noise, this one was completely silent. His body wasn't the typical biological one. It didn't have any kind of organs, bones or other important things mortal creatures require to survive, not even a brain or heart were in his body. He also didn't really move if not necessary, she would have easily believed that he was paralyzed, wasn't it for the fact that she saw him walk into the house and sit down on the couch. He also didn't talk at all. Not even answering her questions, and to be honest, she preferred that over him saying anything really. Ophis just looked into his empty void eyes. And she saw something that was very different in their emotionless ways. Her emotionlessness came from all the time in pure isolation. She had emotions somewhere buried deep within her, and sometimes they were shown by small gestures like miniature smiles or light frowns. As emotions, they didn't seem to exist. Most people would find such a state unsettling or creepy, but it reminded Ophis of something. The dimensional gap. The gap had been silent and hollow before Great Red came in and filled it with sound. Issei was in a similar state. Blank, empty, free of sound. She liked it. All those years she never found anything that resembled the gap before the red one appeared and filled it. Until now. There it was right in front of her. She couldn't help but feel a certain attachment to the dragon. She felt attracted to his presence, to his silence, to his very being. Was this love? Maybe. But Ophis now found something that was way more valuable than the already tainted gap. She had found a new place of silence. Oh, so Dante found himself another phoenix. Hades, one of Death's strongest warriors, sat on his throne. He was one of the gods of death, and this circle it was his turn to make the phoenix fall. He raised his hand. And with the Ouroboros power. Nothing happened. And with the Ouroboros power. Still, nothing. Something has happened behind my back and I don't like the outcome. His snake was gone. The snake that Ophis had given him to make him join the Cows Brigade. It had given him a tremendous power boost and he grew really attached to it. And now it was gone. Who the fuck made Ophis leave the Cows Brigade? Issei was lying on his bed with a smile. What? Issei was on his bed smiling, reading a porn mag. Okay, what the fuck? He was humming a simple tune to himself while going through the mag page for page, sometimes stopping to admire a beautiful pair of oppi. His room was full of posters that had very average content all over them, and there were mountains of porn mags, hentai, porn DVDs, and all other kind of pervert stuff. After finishing his current porn mag, Issei put it on top of one of the stashes and wandered to his computer. He booted the machine up and after entering his password, the monitor revealed an unpleasant amount of hentai games on the desktop. His mouse wandered over one of them and he started it, selecting a new save file and started playing the game. On his face was a rather lustful expression that somehow was also a little bit peaceful. After a while he fucked up an audio dialogue and pressed the wrong button, causing his character to say something he did not at all intend to say. His face turned into one of shock and then sadness. Seconds later it turned out that his dialogue option triggered a secret sex scene, and his expression changed into a surprised one and then into a self-satisfied one, before becoming lustful as the scene started. After finishing the game he stretched himself and walked to his window looking out into a void of pure nothingness. If he could, he would jump out and fill the void with everything he had, but he couldn't. He was trapped in this tiny room. The door was also locked and didn't allow anybody to leave nor enter. At first, he had a fit of panic and tried everything in his might to get out of the room. Breaking the window, puncturing the wall, lockpicking the door. Nothing worked. He was trapped and after a while he had accepted it. At least he could do whatever he wanted with this room, literally. The only limiter was his own imagination. And the limitation that he was the only living being in the room. He was ultimately alone even though it felt so wrong. It felt like he wasn't supposed to be alone, but he still was. Sometimes he could see a faint blue light far off in the distance trying to reach him, but it came never even close. Issei didn't want to escape this room, he wanted to banish the loneliness he felt here. The depressing feeling of knowing that you'll live alone and forever. But he needed to be let out to do something, and for somebody to let him out, they needed to reach him, and for that they needed to get the guy up there to open up his heart for them. But the heart was guarded. Issei didn't want to escape this room, he wanted to banish the loneliness he felt here. The depressing feeling of knowing that you'll live alone and forever. But he needed to be let out to do something, and for somebody to let him out, they needed to reach him, and for that they needed to get the guy up there to open up his heart for them. But the heart was guarded. Dante was just patrolling the town. Nothing big. Nothing special. He did this almost daily to ensure his master's safety. Hiding in the shadows, perfectly masking his presence, and looking for possible threats. The devils seemed to slowly return to their usual schedule, and the fallen in the abandoned church didn't really do anything after the elimination of the trenchcoat-wearing one. Sometimes Dante would stumble into strays. He killed them with ease. Out of nowhere he suddenly felt an enormous presence, right in Issei's proximity. In other words, something powerful was really too close to his master. Dante immediately teleported back to the house to find his master sitting on the couch with a loli on his lap. The loli had tremendous amounts of energy, and Dante quickly recognized it as the Ouroboros. Wait, why was the Ouroboros here? Well, Dante didn't really seem to get any answers soon, seeing as there was a sound barrier around the two. Before being able to observe the barrier for details, Dante was pulled into the kitchen, where he met face to face with a terrified Tiamat. Tiamat, what in the world did I miss? The Dragon Queen froze for a few seconds, probably formulating an answer to his simple yet complex question. Shaking her head she answered. I don't really know. Dante didn't expect that kind of answer from Tiamat of all people. The Ouroboros came to me while I was patrolling my territory and wanted me to join something. I didn't really want to but was more or less forced into a corner by the Ouroboros, and so I accepted. She then asked me if I knew any other powerful individuals. Seeing that she would find out about Issei sooner or later I decided to reveal him to her, for the sake of being there to stop any slip-ups that might happen, thanks to Issei's silent nature. What happened was that the Ouroboros asked one question. Tiamat paused trying to explain to herself what actually happened afterwards, but her train of thought was interrupted by Dante. And then. She snapped out of her short trance-like state to face Dante once more, who was now sweating bullets, which made Tiamat question the physiology of a reaper, before answering. They had a staring contest. Dante gave her the most what the fuck look she had ever seen on his face. And she could only agree that was one of the most random things Tiamat had witnessed ever. And then the Ouroboros sat down on Issei's lap, and when I started moving, she said that she wanted me to be silent, so I created the sound barrier around them, so that I can do anything without pissing off a dragon god. Dante could just nod in agreement, pissing off a dragon god was one of the things he didn't want to do. Ding dong. He was surprised by the sudden sound of the doorbell. Thanks to his senses, he could easily make out the devil's signature and move to the door. Opening it revealed the queen of Rias Gremory. Dante was still baffled on how teens could have such bodies. It made no fucking sense, goddammit. The girl widened her eyes when seeing him, which was explained by the fact that she had never seen him. So Dante took the first word. What do you wish to talk about with my master? The girl needed a while to realize that Dante meant to say. Rias Gremory wants to talk to him about a rather important topic. I don't know the details of it, but it seems to be really urgent. She politely bowed in front of Dante, who was dying from the inside. Looking back into the living room, he saw that Issei was looking him in the eye. Dante signaled to the girl with a head tilt, and Issei nodded in response. My master will be on his way. The Keno accepted that answer and activated a teleportation circle to prepare tea in the orc. After she was gone, Dante closed the door and walked back into the kitchen. Tiamat. The Dragon Queen turned to him. Do you have any idea how to get the Ouroboros off Issei? By the mention of the dragon god's name, Tiamat paused, but soon regrouped her thoughts and calmed down. I don't really know we could. The front door opened. Both Dante and Tiamat froze. What was happening? The front door closed. Dante looked into Tiamat's eyes for a second or two before checking on Issei and he was gone. Tiamat soon followed. Well, that sorted itself out rather quickly. Dante could just nod in agreement. Issei was walking to the old school building. He wasn't walking alone. On his back was a certain dragon god Loli, looking around with slight curiosity in her eyes. She had only allowed him to leave if she could follow, so he allowed her to follow, and because she didn't want to walk, she just climbed on his back and let him give her a piggyback ride. He just silently obliged, not really caring for the stares he got by some people on the street. After a while he got on the school grounds and made his way to the old school building. Thankfully, it was Sunday and that meant that no one would stop him for questioning. Entering the old school building he was meted by quite a lot of stares. Actually, Ophis was met with quite a lot of stares. Hey Hyoudou. Who's the girl on your back? Issei didn't answer, neither did Ophis. He just put her down and proceeded to sit down on one of the free seats, being quickly followed by Ophis, who sat down on his lap without any sign of emotion on neither of their faces. Rias for a moment was completely clueless how to start a conversation, but soon decided to first find out who the girl was. Excuse me, but who are you? Ophis realized that the annoying questioning wouldn't stop until they got an answer, so Ophis gave them an answer, but not before sending the devils a glare that made all of them shiver in fear. Ophis. Rias did not recognize the name, due to it being her Cow's Brigade alias, but Ophis didn't really care about such things. The Gremory also didn't know that this was the Ouroboros she was speaking to, due to not being familiar with the energy signature of the dragon god. What Rias did sense was that Ophis was a dragon and a powerful one at that. Anyway. Before she could speak another word, she was interrupted by the sudden appearance of a magic circle. It was bright orange in color and had a burning bird in the middle. A man emerged from the circle. He looked to be in his early 20s with short blonde hair and eyes that were a darker shade of blue. This was Riser Phoenix, and he made the greatest mistakes of his life by coming here at this time. Riser, what are you doing here? Rias and her peerage were shocked by the sudden arrival. Riser shouldn't be here until tomorrow and in company of Grafia, what was he doing here alone? Issei felt something. Deep inside of him an ancient rage awakened. Anger that wasn't his own nor the monsters started pouring into his mind, not trying to take him over, but to command him. To kill the man that had just appeared in front of him. Ophis did not react. Is it such a crime to visit my fiancé? Riser had a smug smile on his face. Obviously enjoying Ria's confusion. You aren't supposed to be here until tomorrow. And where's Grafia? The blonde devil remained smug. I don't need an escort to come here. I can protect myself. Then he felt it. Two powerful presences. One of them dragon and the other one made him angry. Really angry. He turned to where Issei was seated and completely ignored the Ouroboros on his lap. He was focused on his enemy. His rival. Someone he felt hate towards. And who is this? He pointed at Issei, his full attention directed towards the seated boy. No, he was no boy. Riser could feel that what he was facing wasn't human. It was something different, but he could not identify it. It ticked him off. What was it he was hiding? It was clearly something against Riser. Something that made Riser feel competitive towards him. Really competitive. Was the boy trying to steal Rias from him? Maybe, no, that wasn't it. But still, he wanted the boy gone. Gone forever. He couldn't explain his feelings, but he definitely agreed with them. He needed to not just eliminate, but also humiliate the thing. You. No reaction. Do you seriously think that you're better than me? Riser was pointing at Issei, his voice had lost all its pride. Do you mere lower being think that you can compare to me? His words were met by silence. Issei didn't as much as flinch. His face still passive, but the rage in his mind was slowly getting more comfortable, he found himself agreeing with it. He did not like the man. He really didn't. But he wouldn't give in that easily. The monster was trying its luck and tried finding a way inside of Issei's mind with the help of the ancient rage. Rias and her peerage were completely of the tracks, they had gone lost after Riser had suddenly turned to Issei. Not understanding what was happening, they decided to stay out of the argument. Ophis felt the growing rage in Issei, but didn't see how she could do anything about it. She decided that she shouldn't do anything, not wanting to aggravate Issei further, so he could return into his blank state sooner. Riser couldn't bear the monotone and uninterested stare coming from Issei. He was the superior being. He was a high-class devil. How could anyone know anything compared to that? You will never stand even close to me because I am Riser Phoenix. Chains broke loose. Rage overcame a blank state. The death wish had been signed. He called himself Satan. He called himself ruler of devils. He had stolen from me. He had taken some of my powers and created something ugly and horrible. He had given them my name. He had retreated to the underworld, his home, before I could reach him. He had been lucky. He wouldn't be as lucky the next time we meet or I get to face what he had made. I will destroy what he calls his. I will take back what is mine. He stole from me. I will avenge myself. Prepare yourself, Satan, I am coming for your fake phoenix. Issei snapped. The wave of intense killing intent hit Riser like a truck, throwing him back a few meters. The pressure alone made it hard for Riser to breathe, and the cold feeling that settled in the devil's soul made his blood almost freeze. This was pure killing intent. Due to Issei normally being in a completely blank state of emotions, the killing intent poured out unfiltered, which meant that it wasn't distorted or mixed with other emotions. It was pure, giving it the ability to creep as far as into the souls of whoever was exposed to it. There it would send pure fear into the souls of those exposed and let it take over their emotions, bringing them into a state of utter fear, panic, and shock. Riser, being directly targeted by the killing intent, was the most affected. His pride was suddenly challenged by an intense fear that was starting to take over his body. His mind broke in two. On one side he wanted to fight, believing in his immortality. On the other side he wanted to flee. Wanted to hide. Wanted to get away from Issei. He could not decide what he should do, shifting in place uncontrollably. And he wasn't the only one affected. Rias and her peerage also felt the intense pure killing intent in the air, and they froze when it settled in their soul. None of them could speak nor move, they were completely shut down and could only witness as the event started unfolding. Ophis' soul was too resistant to be affected by the killing intent, but she was annoyed by the fact that Issei's blank state still was disturbed. Her reaction was visible this time, in form of a frown. She realized that she couldn't do anything to make him return faster, so she once more decided to wait it out. After a while, Riser's pride won the battle, due to it being natural to him and thus stronger than the fear, and he decided to fight back against the thing seated in front of him. He unleashed his own flames and quickly made a ball of fire the size of a teapot, firing it at Issei. His flames were orange. Orange, for God's sake. That didn't even qualify as dragon fire, and he had the audacity to call himself a phoenix. He would pay for such foolish claims. There was a fire. Issei's presence hit like a meteor compared to his killing intent. It was filled with his ancient rage that had been raging inside of him, making everything around him seem so tiny and powerless. Rias and her peerage went to their knees, not having nearly enough power to even try and present a challenge to the pressure of Issei's presence. Not even Ophis was saved from the pressure this time, but she held herself way better than the devils. Riser was almost slammed into the ground, barely able to hold his head over the floor. The fire consumed everything. With the last of his power, he looked up, just to lose all hope. Issei was now standing, leaving Ophis alone on the chair. His upper half of the face was covered in shadows, only revealing two tiny orbs of white fire that started at him menacingly. His mouth had deformed into a twisted smile, showing teeth that looked way too sharp to be from a human. Around him was white fire. It was beautiful, yet powerful and menacing. An aura, black in color, coated Issei's entire body. It didn't fit with the white flames, but it seemed to really fit his twisted expression, promising a very painful death. Some tried to oppose it. But that wasn't all. The fireball, the one Riser had sent to damage Issei. The one made out of fire that was praised by all devils of the underworld. The one made out of the only fire that wasn't dragonic and could challenge hellfire. This fireball. It was melting. They were too weak. This fireball was melting. Melting. Fire wasn't supposed to melt. Hell. Fire wasn't even supposed to have the ability to turn liquid. And still there, right in front of him, all laws of physics were completely shattered by Issei, who was making liquid fire out of a fireball that he himself hadn't even created. And that wasn't even the most twisted and utterly insane part about it. No. The most insane part was that the liquid fire was dropping onto the floor and evaporating. There was nowhere they could run. Riser saw only one way out of the situation. Get back home and hide. Hide until this demon had lost him or its rage, and from then on always avoid having contact with the demon. And with that thought in mind, he created a teleportation circle and started pouring energy into it when a flaming spear hit him in the back. But that didn't stop him from getting away. Or so he thought. Riser appeared in front of the Phoenix territory, shocking the guards that were standing there. He immediately got up when the pressure from Issei's killing intent and presence left him and pulled the spear out of his back, throwing it as far away as possible. Though full security, we are in great danger. Upon hearing Riser scream, the guards were shocked for a second before immediately following his orders, closing all gates after letting him enter. There was nowhere they could hide. The sudden pressure made them stop in their work and they all turned to where Riser had thrown the spear to. The spear made out of fire was growing in size, changing into a mass of flames. Then Issei appeared from the mass. His entire body was black with a violent aura around him that was also black in color. His eyes remained two small balls of pure fire, fixated on where Riser currently was, as if he could see him through the castle walls. His teeth were also white, but way sharper and resembled those of a shark more than a human. His body had also changed. Being overall a little bit bigger, his fingers now ending in sharp claws and two black dragonic wings, made out of black flames sprouting out of his back. Their defenses too fragile. The guards, still in a state of shock, got back to fully activating the defenses when Issei started moving to the residence of the Phoenix clan. Issei let his senses scan the ginormous territory. And he felt that down there were many like Riser. Also clones of his powers, and he felt his hate grow. The guards weren't an exception, like Riser and his family, they also carried a tiny piece of the Phoenix power. This angered him greatly. He would not allow it to exist for much longer. As the guards were already preparing the cannons, Issei launched forward in a blur of speed. Going for the closest guard and flying straight through him as the flames consumed his body and took back the Phoenix inside of him. It felt satisfying. The Phoenix inside of him screamed in joy. He could be finally complete once more. Their attacks too unstable. He let his flames loose and they started consuming. One by one. No duels, no fights, it was a one-side overkill massacre. Some didn't do anything and were curled up and crying, not wanting their lives to be over yet, with no success. Some were smart and tried running from the flames, with no success. Some were stupid, or brave some would say, and tried fighting against the flames, with no success. While his flames started surrounding the estate, he himself was slowly making his way towards the center. Everything inside would be consumed by his flames. Lord Phoenix looked out the window. How could this be happening? Why was this happening? Whose doing was this? His land was slowly being consumed by white flames. They were so beautiful and yet so revolting. He hated them with all his heart, he fully hated them. I need to inform the mass about this. He muttered to himself as the door to his room was thrown open by his youngest son. Father. We are under attack by something. The head of the Phoenix pillar only nodded. He didn't know what it was that was attacking them, but as it progressed through his territory, he grew angrier. His people were being slaughtered. His home was being ruined. He would have repair everything. Walking up to the phone, he dialed a number, waited a moment and then spoke. Serziches. I need help now. Halt. I will not allow. Issei didn't even leave him time to scream as the flames consumed the random man who dared oppose him. He was just another one with a bit of Phoenix element inside of him. Nothing interesting. Nothing special. But still a step further to completing himself. But then new people arrived. They did not hold any part of him. What were they doing here? They were indeed powerful. In fact, they were the four Mau of the underworld, also known as the four Satans. And then Issei felt something. One of them had a piece of Phoenix in them. It was inactive and not that big, but there still was Phoenix in him, and Issei wanted that piece of Phoenix. I, Serziches Lucifer, order you in the name of all devils to stop right now what you are doing. We are ready to tone down your punishment if you are ready to cooperate. Issei's head snapped to the red-haired one, he looked like the leader of the bunch, and he wanted Issei to stop. That would not happen, those idiots could keep flying up there, not that he cared, but that one. The one with no hair. He had Phoenix in him, and he would be consumed. Issei launched forward directly at Falbium Asmodeus, who was surprised by the sudden attack and immediately activated a multitude of defensive spells. They stopped Issei in his attack, but his flames immediately started surrounding the weakest of the four Satans, much to the shock of the other three. Serziches was the first to come and help by launching a blast of power of destruction right at Issei. It destroyed his head in a clean blow, but not even a moment later white flames appeared for a moment before a new head was on the Phoenix's shoulders. Falbium was trying his best to not be consumed by the flames. Defensive magic. Offensive magic. Support magic. He tried it all, but it all failed when a tiny spark caught onto his cape and he went up in flames within seconds. The other mass watched in horror as their fellow leader, war comrade, friend was consumed by the flames and killed. In a fit of rage they attacked Issei with all their might, going by the logic that if you cut a snake's head off, its body dies. But the problem with that was that Issei's being was in the flames, he could create another body from the flames at any moment. Even if all of his flames would be distinguished, he could pull himself back into reality by sheer will. That was the power of the Phoenix. And as the three remaining Satans fought what they believed to be the core of the flames, Issei's consciousness controlled the remaining flames, letting them devour more of the Phoenix territory. He soon reached the center of the territory. Where a giant palace stood, the personal palace of the Phoenix family. The ones with the biggest pieces of Phoenix inside of them. the main objectives of this quest. Even though he could, he didn't consume the other three mass seeing as there was no need for that, and he instead let them away from the territory with his body so that they couldn't get in his way while he would take back what was his. When the flames reached the castle's gates, another manifestation of Issei's body stepped out of the flames and made its way through the castle. The flames following. There were guards around every other corner with phoenix pieces like all the other subordinates of the territory. He also came across the peerage members of the entire Phoenix family. They didn't stand a chance. Their pieces were slightly bigger than the others, but now came the 5 biggest pieces. The 2 heads and their 3 sons. He entered the throne room of the castle and was met face to face with 2 elder-looking nobles. 1 male and 1 female. 3 brothers who looked very similar. And a girl. He didn't feel a part of himself from the girl. She only had his abilities, but her blood was clean of his presence. I will not allow you to harm my family any further. You monster. I will defeat you. With those words, the older noble charged a fireball of impressive power and launched it at Issei. But that was nothing more than a small hindrance for the origin phoenix. His flames just ignored the fireball and disintegrated it while going for the head of the family. The man used his own flames and some defensive magic as a means to defend himself, but that utterly failed as the white flames took him and slowly started consuming him. Like Riser, Lord Phoenix wasn't immediately taken by the flames thanks to his immense regeneration, but in contrast to Riser, Issei didn't have to make a last-second attack to follow him, but used his powers to fully consume the phoenix. Father. The oldest son rushed for Issei, his body covered in those weak orange flames of his. But before he could as much as hit Issei, a gigantic pillar of white fire hit him from the side and consumed him in one go. Next up were the other 2 brothers who tried using their powers in combination with their mothers to make any kind of significant damage. Useless. With their combined effort they couldn't even reach red flames. Issei didn't even let them finish, and as he consumed them the territory had finally fully been conquered by the flames. He was now once more complete. It felt good. Really good. Issei then looked at the little girl who was crying due to the loss of her family. The monster that by now was already in the process of taking over wanted him to kill her like all the others, but now without the ancient rage present, Issei stood against the monster once more and locked it back up in the depths of his soul. There was no need for him to kill this girl. His form turned back into that of the 17-year-old boy with dead eyes and an emotionless expression. The monster had been contained once more. But he felt something towards the girl. She didn't have a part of his powers, so he didn't feel any hostility towards her, but she had all the traits of a phoenix, way weaker for sure, but she had them, and that made her related to him. The blood she had, it came from his powers, but it wasn't part of them, so instead of intense hostility, he felt a soft familiarity coming from her. And the girl also seemed to feel it, because she stopped crying and looked into his eyes. They were filled with hope and acknowledgement. He was her family. In a twisted way, you could say that she was his daughter. Technically she was, due to being born from his powers, but it still was twisted to think about. And she suddenly felt loyal to him, her father, the one she truly came from. And she felt happy. She, Ravel Phoenix, had found her true family and had been deemed worthy to be called Phoenix by the Phoenix himself. The Phoenix had a daughter. That was indeed incredible. The 3 mass were truly devastated. After a long battle that was more a chase, the flame monster was finally beaten by their combined efforts, but when they returned to the Phoenix territory, there weren't even ashes left. No sign of the territory ever being there, only a flat surface of dirt and nothing more. The Phoenix family and all their relatives and peerage members are also suspected dead. Not a single devil could be seen near the flat plain other than a giant group of reporters. The story of the Phoenix clan's extinction spread through devil news faster than the fire that had consumed it. Plans to convert a part of the former territory into a graveyard for all the lives that had been lost were already confirmed by the 4th mass, including one for Falbium, who was a distant relative of the Phoenix clan and who has also been killed during the battle against a mysterious creature, now dubbed White Fire of Extinction. The creature that the 3 friends had fought hadn't been documented by any of the reporters, and thus they claimed that the fire itself was sentient. Not wanting to strike more fear into the hearts of the devils, the 3 kept quiet about what they had seen and only revealed that they had beaten the entity. Oh, how wrong they were. But thankfully Issei didn't have any ill will towards the devils and thus didn't plan on attacking them again. Of course that could change any moment, but right now that wasn't the case. The creature was defeated by the combined efforts of the 3 remaining Satans. The creature's origin or intentions are still unknown right now. The king of raiding. The TV was turned off. Did you see that? Of course I did. Do you think I am blind? Calm down, the both of you. I think we know what to do. Kill the fakers while they are vulnerable. Wrong. And then what? Wrong. What? Why not? I need to agree. Why shouldn't we? We should, but let us first find out where that fire originated from. It killed one of the wannabes after all, meaning that it could aid us at getting rid of the other 3. Ah, I see, that is indeed a good idea. Oh, this is gonna be fun. End of the part 2 here. So that's it for today's video guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.